everybody, this is the Shy Genealogist, and today I'd like to show you how to create a family land sheet using Microsoft Word. The first thing we're going to do is adjust the margin so that we've got as much of the paper as we can get and still have it print out well in a printer. To change the margins, I'm going to come up to the top and I'm going to click on the Layout tab, and way over on the left I see the options for margins. One of the options is 1/2 inch all the way around, and that's the option I normally use. If you don't see that option, or if you'd like to change your settings a little bit, come down to custom margins, and here you can type in the numbers for the top, bottom, left, and right. So now I've got a little bit more room vertically and horizontally to make my table as large as I can and to get in as many lines of information as I can. The next thing we're going to do is insert a table. At the top there is a tab that says Insert, and if you click the down arrow under Table, you get to decide how big the table is going to be. And for this sheet, I'm going to click on the first cell, and then I'm going to drag my cursor across until I have 7 rows across and 5 rows down. So now that we have these rows and this table available to us, we need to adjust the widths of the different columns. As long as you're clicked within the table, you will see a new set of tabs appear at the top called Table Tools. If you're not in the table, those options aren't there, so make sure you're clicked in that very top left-hand cell, and we're going to click on the Layout tab within the Table Tools. Now right here I can see that there is a width, so we are going to change that first column to 1 for 1 inch. And if I hit my Enter button, that automatically adjusts that entire column. If I come across to the second column, I want to make that width 0.69. My third column is going to be 1.37. My fourth column is going to be 0.69. My fifth column will be 0.68. The next column is 1.37. And my last column is going to be 1.69. So now I've filled my page as far to the left and right as I can, and we're going to do some manipulating within these different columns to make this table that we're looking for. I'm going to begin by entering some text. In the very top left-hand cell, I'm going to type husband, and then I'm going to take the next 3 cells. I'm going to click in one of them and drag across, and I want to merge these cells into one. But I'm going to want to keep these columns underneath. That's why I didn't make this one large cell at the beginning. So if you're still within this Layout tab, you'll see that there's an option right here that says Merge those cells. So now I've got one large cell across the top. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead to the second row and I'm going to merge the corresponding 3 cells. Now I don't have to only choose cells that are horizontal from each other to merge. I can also merge cells that are above each other. So I highlight those 2 with the husband and the cell below it, and I merge those. I'm going to do the same thing on the other half, only I'm going to make this cell say wife. I'm going to merge the last 2 as well as the 2 below those, and I'm going to merge the 2 cells wife and below. So now I've got basically header information for this sheet telling who these people are going to be, and I still want to do a little bit more formatting. I'm going to highlight the word husband, and I'm going to type a Control and a B to bold that. Now when I show you wife, notice that when you highlight a word you get a little mini menu below. If you don't care for the keyboard shortcuts with the Control B, you can come down and click on this B right here. If you don't prefer either of those 2 ways, you can click on the Home tab and you've got the different font changes and style changes here. I'm also going to make this text a little bit larger. Again, I can use the mini menu, or I can use the menu on the Home tab. If I click on this A next to the number, I can make it slightly larger and slightly larger again until it's the size that I want. So I'm going to go for 14, or you can click this down arrow and select from this list of numbers. I'm going to do the same thing for the wife. I can use this little mini menu here and get wife. So now they are bolded and they're 14 point. I like that. Now I'm going to add some information in the third row. First, I want to begin by keeping track of what county I'm looking at, and if I hit my enter key, it opens up that cell, so I've got room for another line of information, and I want to know the book. What county am I in and what book am I looking at? My next cell over, I want to know how many acres, and I want to know the amount of money they spent. For my third column, I'm going to put information in this column if my subject has purchased land. These next two columns I'm going to merge together. And while I'm at it, I'm going to merge the two below and the two below that. So this information I will record if my subject matter has sold some land. I'm going to indicate who they've sold it to and things like that. My next column will be for any witnesses that are listed in a deed, so I can start following the fans, the family, the associates, and the neighbors. And I'm also going to include anybody who's mentioned in the deed, basically neighbors, if they talk about some land being next door to someone else's land. And my final column is going to be for any comments I want to include to myself. This might be questions that I want to answer later on if I'm thinking things through as I'm reading the deed or information like that. So now I want to do a little more formatting on this table. I'm going to come up here to my husband cell, and then I'm going to come up and click on the Design tab. And over here on the right, I've got some options for putting borders around the different cells. The lines that are currently shown are 1/2 a point thick, which is pretty thin. So I'm going to change that weight to be 1.5 point, and from this point on, unless I change that number again, all of the work that I do with borders will have this 1.5 point thickness. So what I'm going to tell it is that I want my husband tab, or my husband cell, to have thicker outside borders. I'm going to do the same thing for the wife. Thicker outside borders. Now I'm going to take this third row. I'm going to highlight the entire row, and that's saying for every cell in that row I would like a thicker bottom border, and I'm also going to give it a thicker top border. And then I want to come down here and I want to click in this last cell and then highlight the entire table, and I want to put an outside border around that whole thing. Now I think that looks very nice, and it sets off the person information at the very top from the deed information that we're going to be putting down at the bottom. But I would like to go ahead and highlight this entire third row, and I'm going to use my little mini menu here. I'm going to make those bold, and I'm going to center them. Every one of those is centered over their own column. So now I'd like to put some names and some information at the top to get my formatting for that. I'm going to click on the box after husband, and I'm going to type John Smith and his lovely wife Jane Doe. And I'm going to highlight each of those names. I'm going to make them bold. I want them centered within their cell, and I'm going to make them the same 14 font that the husband and wife labels are. I'm going to do that with both of them. And then in these boxes below, you can enter some kind of identification information, like it might say son of James Smith. Or it could give his occupation, like a blacksmith or a farmer. But for me, I'm going to put some dates. Because there are so many different John Smiths, I usually have some kind of date, usually a will or something that at least lets me know when they passed away. I'm not only going to center that information, but I'm going to italicize it, but I'm not going to change the point size because it's just not quite as important as the name itself. I'm going to do the same thing over here for Jane. If you want to use your keyboard shortcuts, you can Control I to italicize and then come to the ribbon and use the center, or you can see that it gives you a keyboard shortcut as well, Control E to center. So now I have a very nice table. This is what I would like to keep for future data collecting. So now I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to call it a blank family land sheet, even though it has the names in it. That way it'll hold its formatting for me. I'm going to click on the File tab. I'm going to come down to Save As, Blank Family Land Sheet. And then every time I want to open this and enter a different name into it at the top, I can re-save it as a different name. So next time we're going to take a look at this land sheet and we're going to start entering some information from deeds to give you an idea of what kind of information you can add and how you can organize it and keep a to-do list, and we're just going to do all kinds of stuff with this document. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Thanks for joining me.